And there you go. There's the end of the story there. And this mug is available from our website, www.shorelineofinfinity.com. Check out prices. And it can be yours as soon as you like. The story mug from shorelineofinfinity.com. This is number 1. Where would our eternal Roman Empire be without coffee? Can't wait. Check out prices. And it can be yours as soon as you like. The story mug from shorelineofinfinity.com. This is number 1. Where would our eternal Roman Empire be without coffee? Can't wait. Check out prices. And it can be yours as soon as you like. The story mug from shorelineofinfinity.com. This is number 1.
We seem to be losing the sound.
Empire be without coffee? Can't wait. Check out prices. And it can be yours as soon as you like. The story mug from shorelineofinfinity.com. This is number 1.
We seem to be losing the sound.
The story mug. Our first issue is a complete short story by the most respected writer of science fiction, Mr. Ian Watson. And this is a complete story on one mug. The story is called Where Would Our Eternal Roman Empire Be?
We seem to be losing the sound.
And you can read the whole story, the story mug, here on this mug. Hello, everybody.
Hello. He's coming in there.
Yeah. Okay, all good. How are we doing? We've got an audience?
We have an audience, yes.
Yeah,
Notice that Noel has been replaced by a horse for the moment, but he will appear shortly.
Hello. No, I am not horse. I am not horse. I am not horse. Everyone hearing me okay? And let's have a look at you. It's a fine-looking audience tonight.
Audience, yeah.
Fine-looking bunch. And we're also live on YouTube as well. So we've got you all muted to start with, if you don't mind. That's the way things go. For those of you who are a bit sad, Russell Jones is not available with us tonight. He's missing a gallbladder as of last night. So Mark and I are doing the double act and stepping in as MC for this evening. Isn't that right, Mark?
Yeah, you have to work out. One of us is standing in for Russell and the other one's standing in for his gallbladder. So you'll need to figure out which one it is.
We'll have to figure that out as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. What does it feel like to be a gallbladder?
That's what science fiction is all about. Pretend you're a gallbladder for the day. Yay. Okay, let's stop waffling. Who starts first, Mark? I thought you were supposed to start first.
Yeah, so welcome to our Event Horizon, our last live Event Horizon of the year on Zoom. So we're kind of verging into Christmas here, which is why Noel's got the cozy fire going and I've got the balloons up. Our living rooms actually do look like this, honestly. And so as I said, we're replacing Russell tonight, so it'll be a bit of a to and fro, and we'll keep things going as much as we can that way. So we know why Russell's not here. Who are we? Well, Noel is the now what you're actually the treasurer of Shoreline Infinity Group at the moment, Noel, aren't you?
Yeah,
but you're the editor of Shoreline Infinity magazine, which is the important one.
Yes, and Mark is the art director, and we're both co-founders of Shoreline of Infinity. We started the whole thing off, and yay, so we are to blame for everything.
Yep, it's our fault.
Okay, right. So for this evening, we've got the events will tick over as normal. There is a chat page, so if you want to join in, you can do that by muttering jokes. Russell does the jokes, as Mark said, but we don't do that. We're not allowed to. When Russell joined Shoreline, he said, I'm going to do the jokes, so we're not allowed to make jokes. Please no. However, he didn't say the audience couldn't. So if anyone's got a good joke, put it on the text chat and we'll release it live.
Science fiction gallbladder jokes. Now, we do happen to have Russell's Twitter feed, and he was talking about his gallbladder earlier. I'll give you one of them, give you an example how low you need to go. I've said it once, so I said it again. Gallbladders suck. So that's it. That's the low that we can go to. See if you,
and that's why Russell does the jokes and not us.
Yeah, his delivery's a lot better, isn't it? Yeah. So.
Oh, someone said they wanted the link for the mug. I will put that up later. That's a new thing we're starting. We'll mention that later. I'll put the link up in the chat later. Okay. Right, so the plan for the evening is we've got a whole lineup of great people here. Some of them on screen just now, so you can have a great time. We'll have Texture on first, doing some fantastic stuff with his machinery and voice and poetry and stuff. Chris Beckett and Tony Ballantyne were reading and talking about their story in Shoreline 19 and how they actually work together. Mark will be doing a bit on art with Jackie Duckworth, one of our fantastic artists, Shoreline artists. And some lovely poetry from F.J. Bergmann coming up later. Looking forward to that very much. We may or may not have some drama. We might not. We'll see how it goes. And then towards the end, we got the Flash Fiction Awards. We're going to announce the winner of the Flash Fiction Awards for 2020. And to close, Tex will be back again with another set. So that's what you've got to look forward to for the next hour and some minutes of time. We don't know how long it's going to be. We can do that now. So that's the setup. So looking forward to that. Anything else to add, Mark? Have I missed something out?
We're also selling a few things. So the mug link will be up later. You can buy the story mug. That's definitely an offer. Issue 19 is out. There'll be more of that later. You can actually order that now. Look, there's one. And we're also running a Kickstarter, a science fiction comic. And I've just posted up the address on the chat line there if you want to go and investigate that. There's some original artwork by Streff on there. If anybody reads Viz, they'll know who Streff is, and it's his comic that we're trying to publish. So we're halfway there. We've got a week to go, so get on there quick and give us some money and we'll get there. That's all.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, let's get on with some music, people, shall we? Let's have something from Texture coming up soon.
This is Texture from This Is Not Pop and Black Lantern Music. You're tuned into Shoreline of Infinity. Sick somewhere, broken, nauseated by the moment lurch. Rapid cycle days, neutered and spayed. Abandoned church, ambience, shadows from a black lantern. Perpetual interior, character assassination squad. Lobby for the last resort of absolute abandon. Past master, circuit bender, architect of isolation. I approve this message, human race in death's direction. We're all amoebic imitation. Castrated and cauterized, casual, cultural, reappropriation makers, last gasp of empire, first breath of the meanplex. Chaos is an upward stagger where everything's permitted and previous precepts don't matter. Fucking scatter, alienated autocrats, corrupted by their diplomats, their bureaucrats, lead them back in chains to murder factories designed by abstract mathematicians. You never listened. So mankind never migrated and the moon doesn't glisten with computronian transmitters. And that's nothing to the sucking fucking horror of the mainstream. Opiate addiction narratives sold as cautionary hate dreams. Seems our minds flow in two streams. One's a deadly current, one's a pool that drowns the loudest screams. Unpick the seams, better to hang 'em and forget it. History knows no compromise, it'll outsmart you if you let it. We make a virtue out of murder. Pile betrayals till Armageddon. Take me out the race, forget it. Decommission, I'm a spent weapon, half-life buried. as fat tribute to Abaddon. We feed on hopes that all who entered here have long abandoned. Acid-drenched homunculus, lost born, misguided seeker. Feel the existential terror manifesting through your speaker. Suck a chloroform holiday and drift away like ether. Diminished like malfunctioning mirror self for replicant. Consciousness of stardust motes express the lexicon. Band played Let's Pretend. Everybody looking for the nearest exit. Children of a restless Brexit. The referendum never ended. Band played Let's Pretend. Everybody looking for the nearest exit. Children of a restless Brexit. The referendum never ended. Band play Let's Pretend. Everybody looking for the nearest exit. Children of a restless Brexit. The referendum never ended. Asthmatic astronaut on the beat. Texture and Asthmatic Astronaut album Illuminate, forthcoming on Listens on Pop. Here's one produced by Hypno Kid, taken from the EP Forest Gods. Yeah. Tough crowd. I'd just like to remind you, I'm not part of your community. Please kindly exclude me from your definition of unity. Trying to be diplomatic, step back, I've got immunity. You should see the state of the fucking unit we built up. It's bitching, rappers starting new religions over what we got cooking in the kitchen. Grab your board and get the kick flips in before the store cops start snitching. Did you ever walk backwards through a collapse of your own making? Did you ever stop to clap away the shame of your own partaking? Cut your throat and bleed, only for them to tell you that you're faking. Beat to a flat to buy weed, but before you knock you smell the bacon. You have to trust your own amnesia. If you forgot, it's probably rotten. Half of the eras I lived through was sullen and misbegotten. Barely alive beneath the fag gash and regret like Doc Cotton. Economies crash in slow motion. They call us West Enders. Civilizations are raced to the bottom. Circadian programmers trace us through circadian vibrations as they pass through the distant orbit of our Planet 9 originations. Our destiny, our destination, burning flags at the end of days and nations. How can you claim these are hallucinations? Chromed up titanium vibrations containing the complexity of alien thought forms constructed behind the cursed mirror. The interdimensional interlopers who poison your internal monologue. Listening for whispers in the fog, the ghost presences of ancestors in whose name we bear the mark of shame. We come from slave traders and colonists, whether apologists or abolitionists, complicit in its blackest midnight. Caught mid-flight, crucified carrion birds whirling a broken twilight, enthralled to these violent delights, in flight towards a violent end, ending in the limelight. Catch me counting my blessings with compulsive obsession. Trying to nail down this consciousness to a physical presence. Sleep splendid in evanescent aggression. Praying at the mossy altar in these forest god sessions. My words leave impressions like catastrophic asteroid impact shattering equators. The greatest of the wokest. Yeah, I was shaking when I wrote this. 5 seconds to midnight. That's all from me in part 1. I'll be back in part 2 with 2 more tunes for you. Peace.
Oh,
Oh, that was good.
okay. That was great. Mark, you there?
I'm here. Yes, right here. There you go.
Thanks, Bram. That was fantastic.
For the next bits, if you make sure your view's on speaker view, it'll be a bit easier to pick out the people actually doing the talking, because we're going to have a few interviews and things coming out now. So our next piece is a little bit of a chat between our two guest writers today. We have Chris Beckett and Tony Ballantyne. And I've got a little bit of bio for those who maybe don't know. Chris has his story, The Silent Woods, in issue 19 of Shoreline, which you can make your pre-order for now, and Noel will tell you all about that. He's formerly a social worker and lecturer, is the author of 8 novels and 3 short story collections. His novel Dark Eden was the winner of the R.C. Clarke Award. His most recent novel, Two Tribes, came out in July 2020. His main characters are from opposite sides of the Brexit divide. Tony Ballantyne is the author of The Dream World, Penrose and Recursion novels, as well as many acclaimed short stories that have appeared in magazines and anthologies around the world, and he's been nominated for the BSFA and Philip K. Dick Awards. And Chris and Tony are going to talk writing, I think, or something like that. And we'll pass over to them and let them take over the next section. There you go.
Tony is going to start by reading an extract from the story, but I can't see him at the moment.
I'm here.
Tony,
here we go. Back in the autumn, after the forest gates were locked, Peter, as ever, had been part of the searchers. The forest had been divided up into sections in the usual way, with a 3-person team allocated to each, led either by a ministry scientist or a trained local like Peter himself. There'd been more than 50 teams from towns and villages all across the infected area. Peter had been with Roger Hardin, the Methodist minister, and Lenny Yarrow, who ran the garage at Staunton. Their task had been to locate every single dead or dying tree in their designated patch, record its position, check its trunk for any suspicious lumps, and then search the ground beneath it with metal spikes. The teams had kept in touch with walkie-talkies. For more than 2 hours, the word going back and forth between them had been that all the tested trees were clean. The searchers hadn't spoken of it to one another, but secretly, each one of them had begun to hope. Could it be possible that they finally got rid of the infestation and this forest had gone back to just being an ordinary wood? It had been just after midday when Peter found the first one. He slid his spike into the earth beneath a sickly-looking ash and felt the horribly familiar crunch. Here, he said quietly. It was mid-December now. There were Christmas lights up on the high street and jingle bells playing in the shops, and everyone was wearing face masks. There were no Christmas trees, of course. So they're still out there, yeah? Asked Peter's daughter Rose over breakfast. She was only 10 years old, but she was tall for her age and confidently perceptive in a way that made her seem older than her years. Lately, she had become a little abrasive too, and Peter and his wife Judy had ruefully observed, though not without pride, that they seemed to be getting a stroppy teenager 3 years early. Afraid so, Peter said. We found 14 of them in the autumn searches. Perhaps that's all there were. It's almost certain that we missed a few. We always do. It's a big forest, and they aren't easy to find, but we are getting the numbers down, and I'm sure if we just keep it up, at a time, well, maybe we should just cut down the forest, Judy said suddenly. The tabloids call for the same every year, after all. Forest chumps, badgers are our kids. When will this PC madness ever end? Rose shook her head. Miss Beswick says that we have to remember there aren't many of them there now, not like in the old days. And if they cut down the forest, what would happen to all the birds and foxes and minibeasts? Quite right, Rose. Peter didn't agree with his daughter's teacher on many points, but she seemed to be following the proved line in this case. The overall trend's a downwards one. We'll get there eventually. I really don't think cutting everything down is the answer. No, said Judy with a sigh, nor do I really. But you can't help thinking sometimes how lovely it would be to have a real Christmas again without this threat hanging over us. Got to say, Chris, that seems remarkably prescient. When did we write this again? Was it this year after lockdown started?
I think it was, I can't exactly remember when it was, but it was at least, was it nearly 2 years ago we first worked on this? I can't remember. But
I think it was like 2 years ago. Yes, it was. There was that line about the face masks in there earlier on, and when I saw that, I thought, "Good grief, Chris! How did you think of that?" But
yeah,
you thought I wrote that line, didn't you? It was a.
we certainly wrote the line about the face mask before the before we knew about coronavirus, which is a weird thing because the whole story is about a kind of dangerous infestation. I must say I'd rather have coronavirus than this infestation, but still it's about dangerous infestation. But we can't agree about who wrote the face mask. I mean, I think you wrote the face mask bit, Tony, but you don't, no?
I can't remember. I mean, when I go through the story, Chris, I always think that I wrote all the good bits, but I don't know what you think.
Yeah, funny enough, I always think that as well. I think I always wrote the good bits. Yeah, it was Tony. We've tried several times, haven't we, to co-write stories? I think this must be about our third or fourth attempt to co-write. So. We've never quite managed to bring it off before, have we? It's always been. I think in the previous times, I think what we've experienced is each one of us sort of wants to tug the story in a different direction, so it keeps jerking back and forward in different directions, and it never quite reaches equilibrium. Isn't that how it tends to turn out? And so it turns out we end up with a story we think is a decent story, but I think from other readers it might look a bit disjointed. Is that fair? Do you think of some of our earlier efforts, Tony?
I think that's fair. Yeah, we had a certain sort of commonality of thought. There's a bit of synchronicity between us, but maybe not as much as we thought that we had. Was there? It was and I think there was always a tension. We both knew the right way to do it, and it wasn't the same thing.
Yeah, but this story grew in a different way because Tony had written a story. You'd written a story which you just couldn't. You didn't quite seem to work to you. So you basically let me have the story to do what I liked with, I think was the original gist, wasn't it? So then I kind of...
I've written the same story about 3 times over and over again with different points of view and everything. And it just wasn't working. And I loved the idea, but it just wasn't gelling. And I remember I sent it to you and you said something which I think is very true, which is that when I write stories, you think that I've got a tendency to put an awful lot into them, to maybe sometimes put too much into them. And I think there's a certain truth in that. Maybe not so much nowadays, but, especially when I was younger, I had so many ideas and I think I made a common mistake of trying to get them all down on the page at once, fitting them in no matter what. And actually what you did, and I think you did it superbly, was you took out the pertinent idea and very interestingly, the story was originally set on another planet, set in a location which I've never managed to get into a story properly, but I still love and I still want to actually write. I think the first thing which you did, which really made it work, was setting it in the forest.
Specifically, the Forest of Dean, in my mind, actually. Yeah, I mean, the Staunton is in the Forest of Dean. Yeah, but
why was that again? It was a.
Pardon?
Why was that?
Well, it's just an ancient forest, which I happen to know a little bit. It's a big forest, and it just felt right. But yeah, I just felt we didn't need all the details of the alien civilization and everything like that, or the settler civilization on a different planet. I felt was distracting from the main point of the story, which was this organism, which basically could. Your original idea was this organism which could, it was a kind of ultimate predator, I think is how you put it, in that it didn't even do the work. It even makes its prey do the work. It just enters their brains and controls them and makes them, and basically makes them prey on themselves, essentially, doesn't it? And in my mind, I combined this with the idea there's a certain type of fungus I've seen in some, I don't know, it's David Attenborough program or something, which gets into the brains of ants and it makes them climb up. It does something to their brain, which makes the ant want to climb to the top of a tree. When it gets to the top of the tree, it dies and its head bursts open and its spores spread out. And I kind of combined your idea in my mind with that, thinking there are actually terrestrial organisms that do that. And but then so I wrote a version, didn't I, set in the Forest forest. And then I went it back to you, and you kind of went over it and added all your own details and so on. And we, having that sort of backbone for the whole thing, we were able to, finally able to do a story that felt to both of us like it was a single coherent whole, wasn't it? Which I think was a new experience. Yeah.
It was very nice. We could see parts of ourselves in it. I mean, the scene in the doctor's surgery, I think that was yours. That was very much your way of thinking. I always thought when I saw that. I mean, I liked it. It was right for the story, but I think you mentioned this yourself.
Oh well, there's a scene in the doctor's surgery later on where essentially these spores get into your brain, and you can actually be tested for them, and it can be cured. It's a very unpleasant cure, but unless you are cured, you will your brain will eventually be taken over, and it'll just make you want to go out in the forest and bury yourself under a tree and be devoured. That's a bit of a spoiler actually, but there you go. Of course, everyone is very frightened by this. I mean, it is surprisingly prescient, not prescient because we couldn't possibly predict it, but it's surprisingly relevant, I think is a better way of putting it. We're trying to describe a society that lives in fear of this organism, aren't we? And how it changes everyone's attitudes. And everyone was going to the doctor, asking the doctor to tell them that they were safe, basically, weren't they? That they were okay. And the doctor couldn't tell them 100%. And I think I was drawing on my experience because I used to be a social worker. That kind of people want you to know, to be able to say for certain whether or not somebody's at risk or not. And you never can in these situations. You never really can tell for certain whether someone's at risk. You can only make your best judgment. And I think I was channeling those old fears, which I used to have. Every social worker in my kind of field used to live in fear of being on the front page of the Sun one day. We really did actually. So it was that kind of feeling that I was trying to tap into. Yeah.
Reminded me of the MMR vaccine scare. When people were asking, was the vaccine safe, and giving themselves reasons not to take it. There's a nice bit, I don't want to give too much away, there's a nice bit in the book where people were finding excuses to move from the forest and go and live somewhere else, but still saying that they wanted to protect it. They didn't want the trees cutting down. I can't remember that bit. I think it's a thought that we both share, that sort of thing. I noticed it's an idea which is in two tribes, I think it was. This idea, people will say one thing which happens to suit them, but they'll pretend they're following the conscience. And so
yes, yeah, there's a fair amount of that, wasn't there? Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we had fun developing the sort of social implications and psychological implications of this, didn't we? And the tricks that people play with themselves, their heads, to kind of make their actions feel okay and to make them feel able to live with themselves.
I'm afraid time's just about up, Chris and Tony. Yeah. Can I just ask one last question? There you go. One last quick question, really about the writing process, writing the story as a partnership. How did you both find that as a concept? A, did you enjoy it, and B, would you do it again, I suppose?
Well, I definitely would do it again. As I say, we've tried a couple of times. Well, I've enjoyed it every time, but I think with retrospect, our previous efforts didn't quite come off. I'm proud of this story, and even though it's Tony's idea originally, I'm proud of being part of it, and yeah, I definitely would do it again. But I think the secret is to have the one writer to have a kind of overall outline, and then work from there, rather than, as we did before, just literally writing a page or two, and then the other one writing a page or two, and then drafting it to and fro. I don't think that works. It doesn't work for us. I mean, I've heard people it works for. Yeah.
Enthusiastic audience there. Tony, just briefly for you, how did you find the experience?
I really I've always enjoyed writing with Chris. And I know Chris very kindly says it was my idea. It was definitely both of our stories. I couldn't make that idea work. It took two of us to get it finished. It was two people working together. I don't think either of us could have written it on this own. And it was a great experience. And yeah, I look forward to doing it again. But when the idea strikes, I don't think we can force it.
Okay, that's great. Well, thanks very much, Tony and Chris. That was lovely. The story that we're talking about is called The Silent Woods, and it's in issue 19, which is going to be out officially on the 30th of November. You can pre-order it still, so look out for that in the shops very shortly. Tony and Chris, thanks very much.
Thanks for having us on. Thank you.
My pleasure. Stay around for the rest of it. Okay, the next job is mine. Introduce the next bit, because Mark now changes his hats and he becomes part of the entertainment. So, Mark, you're going to be talking to Jackie, Jackie Duckworth. Oh, there you are. I was looking for you there. Hi, Jackie. So let's give them a wee introduction so you know who they are. Mark, well, he's been living parallel lives, apparently. He's an astrophysicist, an IT consultant, college lecturer, musician, and comic artist. He's now the art director of Shoreline, as I say. Whoa, we can see behind the green curtain. No! I'll have to fix that in a minute. And he's the creator of Beachcomber and the webcomic Magpie of Space. Jackie Duckworth, her first career was in genetics, but she was always drawn to art. In 2007, she left science and studied at Anglia Ruskin before becoming a freelance illustrator and artist. She's an avid reader of fantasy and science fiction since she was a child, and she loves any chance to use the skills on genre fiction. So, Mark, I hand this section over to you, and I'm going to put my green screen back up. Mark.
Oh, thanks, Noel. And I think we'll just need to remove those spotlights so he doesn't hog the screen there. Right. And Jackie should be joining me in the main screens in a minute if you're all on your speaker view. There we go. That's us. Yep. So this is Jackie. Hi, Jackie. But one of the things Jackie and I are both part of Unit 16, which does all the art for Shoreline. Most of the time we spend sending each other text messages and emails and stuff like that. But Jackie is one of the few people in Unit 16 I have actually met in person once at a science fiction convention many years ago. And this is probably our first face-to-face talk since then, I think. How are you doing, Jackie?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great stuff. So we're going to have a wee chat about how we do things in the illustration world, but mainly through Jackie's much better trained way of doing things than mine. So we'll be having a look at some of our artwork, and have a little gallery which we have on the Shoreline site, which I can share an address with everybody once we've finished, and you can have a look at that at leisure. But do you want to just introduce a little bit about how you get into all this stuff, Jackie? I mean, we know you were a scientist and then you became an artist, or maybe you're an artist all the time, because that's the way I kind of did things. I did all sorts of jobs, but Rue as well.
Yeah, I mean, I always did holiday sketches and things like that. I stopped doing science when I had kids, and I had a little bit of a break. And then I went for a walk with somebody. I didn't know them very well. And I said, I always wish I'd done art A-level. And she said, well, why don't you? And I thought, well, why don't I? So I did a life drawing class, and then I went to regional college to do an A-level equivalent. And they said, you should go to university. So then I went to Anglia Ruskin and I studied illustration rather than fine art, because whatever I'm doing, whatever kind of art it is, there's always some kind of story behind it, even if it's only one that I know, but there's still a story.
Yeah, I think that's why I tend to do comics. It's got to be a sequence to tell what's going on. Yeah. So so basically we spend a lot of our time reading stories that come in for Shoreline, and then figuring out what does that look like and producing something. So I think we will go to some of your art, and you can maybe talk us through some of these ones. So I'm going to try and share my screen here. So let's see, you should still be able to hear us once we're there. And I said I'll share this gallery with everybody once we're finished. So can everybody see that all right? Yeah, we've got the... How's that, Jackie? Can you see?
I can see it. Yeah, that's fine.
So I actually changed it a wee bit since Jackie saw this, because I put the mug up. Because the story in a mug that Noel's been telling us about, our artist in our very first one is Jackie, and she has illustrated this great wee story by Ian Watson about a strange parallel universe Roman Empire, and we went through quite a bit of a voyage of discovery, figuring out how we're going to do this. Do you want to tell us a wee bit about the illustration for this one, Jackie?
Yeah, it was great fun actually, because Mark started off with the concept of doing a coffee advertisement, kind of one of your classic advertising vintage type posters. And then I got the idea of doing it. I wanted to have this coffee brand called Herculaneum, making fine coffee since AD 79. And we kind of worked our way from that through that, and it ended up being more and more like a Roman wall painting, because I've been to Herculaneum not that long ago. And in my head, at least, the volcano has inspired the Romans to invent the espresso machine. So that's why there's a nice.
There is a steampunk Roman espresso machine in the picture, but it's probably easy to see that when you go to the full one in the.
Yeah, it's not on the mug, I don't think, is it? I think it's
off the bottom. It's
down at the bottom, the coffee machine.
In fact, we'll come to the full illustration as we go through some. Yeah, but that was a fun project, and it's a whole new concept that only we do. Brilliant. So anyway, let's go back to, this is how we met Jackie. First of all, her kind of natural environment is at giving exhibitions at various conventions and things, and this is her doing just that. Which one is this you're at, Jackie?
That's part of the Pint of Science. Which is where the scientists give talks in pubs, and then in many cities there's also an accompanying exhibition. You're given one of the scientists, you read some stuff about their research, you meet them over a coffee or a beer, and then you make work in response to that. And I love doing it because you can be completely off the wall. You can do anything you want. If we get further on, I can point out some of the things.
If I just scroll down a little bit,
yeah.
Oh, did I put it at the end? Yeah, there's a little.
Yeah. So the guy I had, he researches mistakes in DNA replication. So I came up with kind of a small installation type thing, and I've exhibited a colograph, the colograph plate that I did the print from, a photograph of my printing press, and then I also made miniature books based on that print. Along to the words of head, shoulders, knees and toes, repeated over and over and over again. And one of them, the glass has come out and the book's falling out.
Yeah, this is replication happening here. So coming down the page, yeah. Very good. Yeah.
So that was great fun. I love doing that.
Very good. Yeah. And I think there's a close-up of the original.
Yeah, that's the main print.
Yeah. So this is science-inspiring art at this point.
Absolutely, definitely.
Great, which is basically what science fiction is about, isn't it? Really, that's the whole point, isn't it? So yeah, so we've got some other things. I'll just scroll up. You were telling me these are a very popular thing that you do.
It's amazing. It started off. I responded to a kind of call for artists to make art that would be sold through a cigarette vending machine. And I came up with the idea of having a little story in a box, and you open the box and you find the clues, and they're all little handmade bits of art. In fact, it was a disaster as a project because they couldn't make the vending machine work. Right. But I had the idea, so I put it in a much easier to handle box that did not require me to actually make box. And I started selling them, and people love them, and I love making them. So I do a new one each year, and I sell loads of them. I mean, it's just amazing. They're a fiddle to make. I spent all day today making tiny little jars out of polymer clay and painting them, but it's just fun. I love doing it.
So we've got to guess the story in your head from the contents of the box. Is that
they've become a bit more Only Connect than an actual story, because I found I was increasingly selling them abroad, and it was no good putting in obscure riddles about King Arthur and his knights if I was selling one to somebody in India. So they've become more visual and less wordy, but people still love them.
Very good. That's another merch idea there. That's very good. So what else have we got here? There's a little, this is the Wilfred Owen Association stuff.
Yeah, this is another poet thing I came up with. I keep having little boxy ideas. I do illustrations for poems. I love illustrating poetry. And I decided when I graduated that I was not going to go through I'm going to get an agent, I'm going to present stuff to lots of big publishers and work that way. I thought I'm just going to do things I want to do and make a kind of patchwork portfolio career out of this. So I sell poems in boxes, and they're very popular as well. And it's one of those personal contact things that happens so often. Somebody came to a Christmas market I was selling at. I bought a poem of, I don't know, Adelsdorff or something. And then I got an email a few days later saying, I'm the chairman or whatever of the Wilfred Owen Association Society. It's his centenary. Can we commission you to do a box of one of his poems? I said, yes, please.
Very good. Yeah.
And it was great. So that's why the picture at the bottom is such an odd format, because the poem is on one side of the piece of paper. And then when you turn the book the other way up, then you get this long elongated illustration.
Is that actually a matchbox? Is that how small?
Actually a matchbox. It's that small. And then it pops up like a concert, like a Jack in the Box when you open it.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Oh, let's see. And we've got another one of your other projects here. This is a
yeah, that was for Guardbridge Books. That was interesting. Trying to draw kind of zombie revenant type things was a lot harder than I'd imagined. It actually came to it, but I was pleased with how it came out, and they were pleased with how it came out. They wanted a kind of, there's a scene in the book where the protagonist is sitting in a cafe, and it's got all these what clearly sort of like communist era posters. So they suggested I kind of work from that sort of idea, but put elements from the story into it. It was good. We did a t-shirt. We did the book cover, t-shirt, bookmark, and then these flyers as well, all sort of coming from the same idea.
You're from the old communist era countries. They always had this kind of very monumental way of doing their art, didn't they?
Yeah, that's right.
And again, this is another thing where you're looking at a type of art like you did with the Roman murals for us, and trying to adapt it to tell your own stories.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, they definitely look like zombies. I thought pretty good at that. Yeah. And this is sort of things I saw the first exhibition you did. There was a lot of these beautiful.
Yeah, this is one of the most. When I've got my fine art hat on, I'm mostly a printmaker, so I tend to do editions. This is about one of the most popular editions I've done. I read a little piece in New Scientist about how they'd found the footprints of a child and a wolf dog, but they were walking next to each other. One wasn't hunting the other. They were the footprints walking together through the mud or whatever. And I found that really. I'm a mad dog lady. I just found that really touching. And I was doing an exhibition. I was in the run up to an exhibition that was aimed at families. So I thought, well, I'm going to do a picture of this little child, a little boy, with his kind of wolf dog hybrid evolving man's best friend thing. And it's been, lots of people love it. I love it.
It's got kind of a primal look to it, the trees and the light coming through this. Yeah, very nice. And they did. I mean, it's the evidence there, isn't it? That it's man's oldest friend. It's the dog, isn't it? Great stuff. No, that's been great. I know you brought all these skills to join us at Shoreline, and we've been putting you to work for quite a while now, producing all sorts of things. And I'm always amazed because it's always something different because you've got so many styles you can draw from. And this is I've just gone back as far as issue 16, but we don't have all night. Basically, this is quite an abstract one. What this is from The Polite Thing to Do by Helen French. What was your idea on this one?
Well, when I was studying illustration, one of the things that one of the tutors that I respected most said was, when you look at the illustration to a story or a book cover, it shouldn't tell you the whole story, but it should add something to it. So you look at the illustration, you think that's attractive. Then you read the story, then you look at the illustration again, you go, wow, that's really clever. Or I hadn't thought of that. Oh, yes, that's what he meant, that kind of thing. So I started off with this. I wanted to do a picture like Alice in Wonderland, Tennille, the caterpillar on the mushroom sort of thing. But when I actually looked at the kind of mushroom that's in the story, they weren't very good for sitting on top of. So then the protagonist goes down a spiral in the story. So I started working with spirals. and I tried various compositions with it. But in the end, I found it worked best with these 2 spirals, one for the mushrooms and one for the protagonist.
Mhm.
And I just like the kind of semi-symmetry of it. I always crop things because I think it makes them more dramatic.
Yeah, this is very like a nautilus shell until you look very closely.
Mm.
Characters are actually on it. It's not just the stripes you normally get in that kind of shell. So it's quite
That's the kind of detail I like people to come back into when they think about it.
Yeah, and sometimes you spot that after you've read the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the whole point of the way Shoreline's laid out is we give these pictures just before the story, and this is the idea that you're flicking through, you go, oh, what's that? And then you read the story, and that's exactly the kind of philosophy you've brought to it, which is great. Yeah. So I'll flick through again. This is from issue 17 now. Story called The Weavers. A very different kind of image you've got here. I love the contrasts on this one. So was this like a scene from the story, or how did you get it?
The story is set in Paisley, and I really wanted to reflect the elements of the city that are in the story. So it's called The Weavers. I put this into it by putting the map on a Paisley shawl, the classic Paisley shawl that's made in Paisley.
Very close, you see that, yeah.
And it's the as I remember it, I haven't read it for a little while. The story is basically set in the evening. It's dark. It's the characters are wandering around in the night. So I just wanted this really bold effect, set almost abstract. I think this was the one I did after Harry's Shiver, wasn't it? Which also came out very black and white and abstract. And I think maybe I was still exploring those kind of ideas in my mind.
Done a lot very bold, and also I think that was we were also looking at Shoreline was pretty much in black and white all the time. Then we hadn't got so much of the digital versions.
Mm.
So that's really very good. Yeah. Right. Well, let's move on. Now, this is issue 18. This is a previous issue, which is out now. And we had great fun back and forward with the cover because you came up with some ideas, and then Noel and I thought, oh, it's a spaceport, and then we went backwards and forwards a bit more with that, and this kind of emerged. So you had a kind of a very good science fiction idea where we had a spaceship. So where did that come from, and then how did it interact with Noel and I? Going, oh, we recognise that.
There's this thing, isn't there, that they want to build a spaceport. I wanted to use the actual Scottish coast because it's shoreline of Infinity. I wanted to use the actual shoreline of a bit of Scotland that's near where they're talking about the spaceport. And then we wanted a spaceship in it, and it's actually come out. I realised afterwards, looking a bit like a killer whale.
It is a bit, yeah.
Which, given that it's also an actual shoreline and the sea and the night sky all at the same time, I think having a spaceship that looks like a killer whale is actually quite cool. But that was actually unintentional. It was an unconscious killer whale, I think.
Space is the sea here, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the spaceport's supposed to go on. That's right. Yeah, that was great fun chucking that backwards and forwards. It just got more and more involved with it as it went. A very good cover, very bold cover. Yeah. And then it's the same issue you illustrated Chrysalis by Laura Scotland, which was that was a competition winner, that one. And they got this beautiful stained glass look on here, which is just amazing. Yeah.
Spent a lot of time on Procreate doing that. A lot of time. But again, what I tried to do is that we've got this story about a baby and there's the couple, and it kind of lends itself to a nativity scene. And one of the protagonists actually works in stained glass, so that fitted even better with using the stained glass window as the basis. And then I just kept putting in more and more and more details that once you've read the story, you can look back at it and think, oh, that's a virus particle. Yes. Oh, she's got a fat gas mask.
Interesting things.
Oh, and that's what I like to do. I like to have fun with the image and put unexpected things in.
Yeah, when you look at it, they're not just shapes. You have to look closely, and they tell you something that's coming into the story, which is very good. And then this is we now come back to the mug full circle.
Yeah,
it's actually slightly too big for me to fit it in my screen here. So here's this top half, I think, which shows in the mug with bouncing in the airship. But if we come down here, we actually have a Roman cafe with a fantastic Roman, kind of cappuccino maker or whatever. They're sitting in here steaming away. Brilliant thing. This, and you told us a wee bit about this. But can you tell us about the coffee maker? That's a bit we didn't really cover.
Well, I don't really know how those. I can't remember the special word for it now, but it goes round and round and round with steam. So I kind of adapted it and had coffee coming out of it. I don't really understand in my head how it would work to make coffee, but I think it looks really cool.
It's just so we didn't have to build one, just draw one. There's always a bit of a let out there, isn't it?
Yeah. And it was nice to have a little scene. I think it was your idea to have a little bar scene down at the bottom, actually.
Yeah, I think I fancied just seeing what a
idea.
coffee bar would have looked like, and I knew you would come up with something if I could.
And I had to draft in family members to stand around in their dressing gowns as source material because.
Right, this is how you got the hang of the robes correct and this sort of thing. Yeah, that's always yeah.
I have two art tricks on that. One is make your family members dress up, and two is I use Magic Pose, which is a program which is like the artist's models, but you can move them to any position. If you're doing something like the futility where you've got all the soldiers on the ground. I actually was planning on asking people to pose for me, and then I thought, hang on, I don't think even my garden's big enough to have like 6 fully grown men stretched out on the ground. So I used magic Pose, and it was really helpful.
Yeah, I quite often dabble with Dance Studio when I'm trying to figure out what. It's quite handy to have that visualizing software. And occasionally, if you look in the magazine, you realize that I've actually just used Dance Studio because it was a rush job. so that's a bit of a giveaway. If it's not a drawing from me, I've had to rush it. So yeah, but I think I love the way it just looks like, if the Romans had a coffee poster and airships, this is what they would paint on the wall. It's great. So that has been through the little art gallery. Now, what I'll do is I'll share this address with everybody, so you can actually have another wee look at that later on. And I'll stop sharing my screen so we come back up here. So let's just share that with everybody. So this is Jackie's art, if you want to have a wee look at that. And there's also a link from there to Jackie's own website, so you can see what she does. And I'll just let you play with that later on, as well as check out the Kickstarter as well. Just push that as well. So, but thanks for taking us through that, Jackie. So where do you think you'll be headed with your art next? Where's it going to take you?
Well, this year has been very, very strange because I spent the first half of the year being utterly miserable that there were no exhibitions and no conventions and nothing like that. And then I spent the last 3 months frantically making things because everybody's decided that what you want to buy in lockdown are mystery boxes. So I'm going into next year not knowing whether any exhibitions or conventions are really going to be running. I have boxes and boxes full of art that I've made ready for 2020 that nobody's seen. So I'm actually thinking about doing, call it a graphic novel is way beyond its means. It would be a short illustrated thing. Based on a folk song, which is something I've been wanting to do for 2 or 3 years, and I never quite get around to it. And I'm thinking maybe this spring is when I should actually pull my socks up and start working on it. So maybe that's what's coming next.
Great. Well, that's good. We'll watch out for that, and maybe get you back and we can talk about it again.
That'd be good.
That's been great. No, thanks very much, Jackie. I think we'll hand ourselves back over to the rest of the group now, and I'll let everybody else clap because I'm normally the person that does the clapping, so I better not. Right. So
that's great.
We're headed across to have a bit of poetry. Is that right, Noel?
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks very much, Mark. Thank you very much, Jackie. That was insightful. I love that talk. I'm very fond of that stained glass picture as well. That would deserve to be blown up stained glass size, I think. It would be fantastic to see that full size. So thank you very much, Jackie. It's brilliant. Okay. Right. We're moving on, and hopefully our next reader is ready. Yeah, I can see her now. She's looking poised. F.J. Bergmann. I'll just introduce you. F.J. Bergmann is the editor. Hang on, let me just take off all the spotlights. Oh, Mark's done it already. Excellent. Yay!
Are you reading my bit? So I'll do your bit for you.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, we've got this sussed. I've got this sussed like a hole in my head.
Oh yeah, so
weird. Okay, I'm being dissolved here. That's Russell. He's dissolving me He's got acid out of his gallbladder. He's now dissolved me when I'm not even looking. God. Okay. Yeah, sorry. F.J. Bergmann is editor of Starline, the Journal of the Science Fiction Poetry Association, 2012 to 2017 and 2020 onwards. She's poetry editor of Mobius, the Journal of Social Change, since 2007. She's managing editor for Mad Hat Press since 2015, and she's poetry editor and book designer for Weird House Press. F.J. Bergmann appears in Multiverse and also lots of issues of Shoreline Fitted. So it's great to actually meet you in person, F.J. If you're ready to speak, we're happy to listen to you now. F.J. Bergmann.
Thanks so much. I'll read a number of poems that have appeared in Shoreline of Infinity and Multiverse. Taxonomy. They shared the same remote ancestors, but were no longer siblings or even cousins. Some still occupied the cylinders whose measureless heights were hidden in their own eternal clouds. Animate, identical bullets rattling in steel chambers, the cloistered inhabitants no longer used the same nouns for those on the exterior, though they retained the old nomenclature for each other. They were careful to never look out at the sky, never look down, made sure to take the medicines that kept them from dreaming or asking questions. Any who wished to alter prevailing paradigms were invited to implement change elsewhere. Outside, those who could levitate rose through the poisonous air in the dying sun glow to stare through lit windows at the fortunate residents. Those who could calculate and measure struggled to synthesize tentative antidotes. Those who had taught themselves how to tame monsters waited in the dark with their mutant armies. This poem has an epigraph from the poem Jordan County Park by Jennifer Jones. This wasn't the place I thought I'd be, and even getting here was hard. Human resources. I thought it was a funny place for a job interview. The floor was half an inch deep in water or something like it, with galvanized garbage can lids for stepping stones. There were twitching, sudden movements in the fluid. Maybe fish, but I didn't want to stare. It was important to seem completely at ease. He was floating directly above an enormous ebony desk in lotus position with his eyes shut. And it didn't seem fair that I had had to climb the last 12 stories on a ladder made of goat hair, as far as I could tell. 2 dirty porcelain plates, a finger bowl, wine glass, water goblet, demitasse, and assorted utensils hovered in the perfumed pink air, orbiting him like deformed planets circling a dead sun. I waited patiently, crouched on the last lid, clutching my purple briefcase to my bosom, admiring the view of the smoking ruins of the airport and labyrinth through the bullet-riddled floor-to-ceiling glass. Far out to sea, I thought I glimpsed a vast, dark armada moving toward the next continent. He asked me if I'd be willing to relocate, learn Unix, play golf, drive a Hummer, ensure my life in his favor, get a sex change, and wear nothing but lime green. I said it might be difficult to find hiking boots that color. He told me I had to grow my own wings. Mutant diseases of birds. Lackluster hackles. Retained crop. Tetraploid spurs. Inadvertent winglessness. Eggshell distemper. shifted candling, heavy metal claws, inverted plumage, radiating umbrage, bubble bones, snarled comb, rattled wattles, peaky beak, fizzy gizzard, phasing luminescence, sudden glowing feather-edged holes in mid-cloud. Afterlife. He drank through the hallucinations that tried to entwine him in their silky ribbons. Flakes of the lost world fell around him like carnivorous snow. The beast had been willing to let him ride it, asking only his heart in exchange. It left blackened tracks on the snow. Something about the lake of fire seemed familiar. Eye makeup was the only mandatory attire these days, and the more it looked like the holes in a skull, the better. Sometimes there were teeth, Batesian mimicry. The extra limbs were already beginning to form. He hoped they would end in serrated claws, for self-defense only, of course. One deck of cards could predict futures. The other reflected only the past. But someone had shuffled both decks together. They knew where they were going, though. It's better to be the monarch of a dying planet than not to be a king at all. Everybody was falling outward from its center, falling apart. Green leaves against the black of space. That's inspiration. He was returning to the tools of a simpler time. A manual typewriter, hand-rolled cigarettes, pink fingernail polish. With the right wardrobe, he wouldn't need to speak or think. He could be headless. His nose and ears had always been an embarrassment. Who needed hands anyway? She turned away from the sun to smile at him. She didn't turn into anything. She disappointed him in ways he had forgotten. He kept the stumps of his hands over where his ears had been. He had many companions by then, imaginary and otherwise, some of whom made him regret earlier decisions. Some of whom regretted nothing, not even the sacrifices, the blood-drenched furrows. He watched an imaginative God rise from a leveled horizon. That one is one of many I wrote in a local coffee shop that always has exhibits by local artists hanging on the walls. And that was one of the many ekphrastic series I've produced. All of those stanzas described individual paintings. Flagship. Our highly advanced society is administered entirely by the muses. We have 5 of them. Barista, the muse of caffeinated beverages. Miel, the muse of apiculture. Cake, the muse of high-calorie pastry. Buttress, the muse of architecture. And Bazooka, the muse of dissent. The terrain of our world, no matter how precipitous, is rigorously gridded, though considerable latitude is allowed with respect to how each grid square populates itself. Variety in temperature, elevation, and humility is encouraged. Bees form the bulk of our citizenry. A minimum number of sunlit days are mandatory, except in the prison squares. Clouds form as a cooperative venture between pastry and architecture. Where did you think they came from? Designated blimps tug clouds into position. Then Bazooka gives the signal to let the bombardment begin. This poem won the Risling Award for the short poem from SFPA in the first year after I had joined, when I knew only one person in the organization. Eating light. It all started when I was sent to bed without supper. I was playing with my flashlight under the covers and tried shining it in my mouth. Light flooded my throat like golden syrup. Soon I was tasting light everywhere, the icy bitterness of fluorescence, a burst of intensely spiced flavors from an arc welder, the dripping red meat of sunsets. Natural light was most easily digestible, but at night I was limited to the sparse glow of fireflies and phosphorescent rotting logs. And inevitably I succumbed to the artificial flavors of a strip mall's jittering neon rainbows. Sodium lamps always had a nasty, putrid aftertaste, like rotting oranges, which is why I so frequently vomited in nighttime parking garages. But mercury vapor emissions foamed on my tongue, aromatic, green. Have you ever had key lime mousse or lemon mint custard? It's nothing like that at all. Each Halloween, I followed trick-or-treaters from door to door, gorging myself on jack-o'-lantern's sweet candlelight. Autumn bonfires burnt my lips with the pungent heat of five-alarm chili, smoking with the ghost of mole sauce. I hid strings of holiday lights in my underwear drawer in case of a sudden craving. On a high school field trip to a nuclear facility, I was finally overcome with an insatiable hunger for the indigo twilight of a reactor pool, glowing with the underwater gradient of Cherenkov radiation. A blue light luscious as chocolate, hypnotic as a liqueur, decadent as dissolved gemstones. I am no terrorist, merely an addict. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, thank you. That was wonderful. That was mesmerizing. I really enjoyed that. And one of the advantages of doing this COVID alternative entertainment is we can actually have people like F.J. Bergmann coming along to entertain us here in Scotland as well. So it's fantastic. One of these days we'll be able to afford to fly you over and see you in person, but the budget doesn't quite stretch there yet. So, but thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Just going to take a few seconds, if you don't mind, to remind you that the reason we're here, well, just the hell of it actually, but also the excuse for coming along tonight is launching Shoreline Infinity issue 19, which is amazing. And Mark and I was gobsmacked we get anywhere beyond one, really. But
a bumper edition this time, though.
Yes, they're getting thicker, and there's reason for that, which we hope to reveal in the next couple of weeks or so, actually, before Christmas. But we're very proud of this one. We've got Tony Ballantyne and Chris Beckett, as you've already listened to. And I hope you've all forgotten what they said, because the story is a very good story and a reflection of our times. Ian Watson gets a feature, hence the mug. Anya Au, David Mana, Gregory Austin, Hugh Steer, all sorts of people. Tika Mariah Smits, Ruth Booth has got another column here. Award-winning Ruth Booth, as she's known as we're known as award-winning Shoreline of Infinity. Award-winning Ruth E.J. Booth is in here. The Ian Watson story was the inspiration for the mug, because Ian came forward, offered a story, and he offered a very short story, which is 2 pages long, and there's the full artwork for Jackie as well, in black and white. and I always want to try something different. So I wonder if that fits on a mug. The story's about coffee. That seems appropriate. The illustration was a coffee machine, which I'm sorry I had to cut off the mug to do a taller mug. And it was less than 280 words, so it fitted perfectly. And hence thought the mug idea, the story mug, is born. So we'll see how that goes. And it's available on our website now. I sent a link in the live chat. $7.95 plus postage. If you live at Edinburgh, come and deliver it by hand if you're local. Save your postage.
You could deliver it filled though. You put some coffee to get around.
Yes. Yeah, I'll drive in my new electric car. Woo.
Ooh.
With a cup of coffee in it. Yeah, sure I will. Or cycle. But yeah, so please get Shoreline 1319. It's available for pre-order until the 30th of November, which is next Monday, St Andrew's Day, and then it'll go up a little bit to full price. Also available in digital formats too. So we're very proud of this little beast. And what a fantastic cover that is by Stephen Daly. So we've
Stephen's
been
done a
blessed.
discovery this year. He's very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, we're blessed with artists. Jackie, Stephen, others as well. Mark does a great job of herding the artists. It's a sight to see. So that's that. So what I would say now is this is the point where, hang on, what's happening? I was going to tell a joke, but...
Attention! Attention, Britons! Attention, Britons and overseas dependents. This is a ZOM Imperial Service emergency broadcast. Do not adjust your oral docs or recalibrate your connectoscopes. We interrupt your usual scheduled gardening program, What's So Cool About Q, to bring you the latest news from the war against the Martian invader.
And the news is not so good, I'm afraid. London is completely destroyed.
Buckingham Palace, the Tower of London, the Tesla Bridge, the Telegram Tower, all of them gone, destroyed by our hated reptilian oppressors.
I think you mean Martian.
Filthy, green-skinned, pondweed-swinging, unnatural sons of... What?
Our allies, the Martians.
Martians! Sorry, how clumsy of me. For clarification, London has been laid waste by Martian invaders, not by our valiant, flux-morphed former citizens and their pan-dimensional masters.
Which, dear viewers, is why ZOM quality might not be quite up to snuff, operating as we are on portable equipment from the new temporary capital of Loughborough.
A world empire run from a nondescript town in the Midlands. Can it work?
Oh, it can and it will, Felix. In fact, the sitting government has declared, and I quote, Loughborough is in fact the ideal site for the governance of the civilized world. Sensible central location, much closer to grouse shooting country, and to be honest, we never liked London that much in the first place. Oh, Felix, what do you have to say to that?
Well, I wouldn't want to cast aspersions, but judging by the fact that Oxford, Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, York, Hull, and Lincoln were all named as temporary capital, only to be destroyed before the government could take up residence, the recent statement does not hold water. Furthermore, it is symptomatic of the kind of dishonest hucksterism that has become the acme of this deplorable government.
Oh, I say, steady on.
Now, I'm sorry, Fantalantaladra. I'm just so tired of these ineffectual nincompoops farming out important government contracts to their friends, which they then renege on. Do you know, a shipment of rifles was delivered to our brave boys battling now on the outskirts of Loughborough, and they turned out to be sharpened bamboo tubes.
Oh, good Lord, really?
Yes, manufactured by the Prime Minister's mistress, Hydo Darding. When questioned, she said, well, the Martians have force fields protecting their ships, so bullets would be a waste. Far better to stick them when they pop out of their armoured hulls to use the privy.
Oh, the privy, is she mad?
Who can say? She slept with the PM. She's certainly not very discerning. Yes, okay.
In further sketch unsettled news, Felix. The government is settling into their new quarters in besieged Loughborough. The Martians seem to be holding fast on the outskirts of Loughborough. For some reason, they are unwilling to enter. I can't imagine why. Perhaps they are contemplating a parley or merely gathering their forces for the final defeat of our great nation.
Meanwhile, the Queen, long may she reign, and her entourage have boarded the most powerful ship in our fleet, the celebrated Thunderchild, en route for Canada. For security reasons, we cannot reveal any further details of the royal evacuation, but I'm sure the most powerful weapon in our armory will prove more than a match for the Martian menace.
I'm sure the whole empire will be relieved when Her Majesty arrives safely in Halifax.
Indeed we shall. The struggle continues, however, and now even more alongside our new and unexpected allies, those citizens turned lizardkin by the Flux and their multidimensional overlords. As you know, it has long been government policy to take the dregs of society, instill them with rigid discipline and combat rage, and then simply dump them in the gutter when they are past their prime. Zom World Service will now go live to a crisis-related puff piece featuring such a soldier who has found a new lease of life in Her Majesty's Mercy Corps. And we may be very lucky to speak to one of his lizardkin comrades in arms. I say, Sergeant Woodbine, this is Zom World Service calling. Are you receiving me?
Loud and clear, Mr. Sutlam, sir.
Excellent. I understand you are currently battling the Martian invader this very minute.
Well, yeah, I suppose you could say that. We don't really battle them so much these days.
Oh.
No, what with them, our weapons being completely useless against them.
Well, what do you do then?
Well, in a manner of speaking, we die, sir, in plucky, happy-go-lucky droves.
Oh, that's jolly brave of you, Sergeant.
Not me, ma'am. Ain't dead yet.
Oh, that's not surprising now, is it? For I understand you have served Her Majesty before this.
True enough. As a younger man, I served in Africa, bringing the light of civilization to the Zulu by way of murdering them in great big bloody batches. But duty done, I was paid a quid and told to hook it. I eventually found lodgings in Newgate Prison after I was run in for vagrancy.
Oh, so you chose the traditional post-military career of being completely abandoned by the state you served.
I did, and I was proud. I was that proud, I tell you.
So, how did you come back into the service?
Well, I was sitting down for a bowl of oily gruel one day when this big knob flourishes into the prison ward and he says, Her Majesty's prisoners, the country is in dire need of your help. A strange disease has struck our empire, and even now honourable citizens flop around in the gutters, transforming into hideous wizardkin. Any man who would volunteer for the disagreeable work of dispatching these poor unfortunates will have their freedom, a shiny sixpence, a second-hand six-shooter, and the thanks of Her Majesty.
Quite an offer.
To be passably honest, Mr. Sutlam, I barely understood 2 words that fop said. But a fop's a fop, and a fop's a man to follow, whether it's into the dust of Africa bristling with spears or into the strand slippery with salamanders.
We have all come to appreciate the work you and the rest of the Mercy Corps have done during the lockdown. Why, I stood on my doorstep and banged pots and pans while your comrades gunned down the infected before my very eyes.
It gives us all good heart to hear it, ma'am.
But now the Mercy Corps has been disbanded.
That's right, on account of us discovering that the Flux was transforming our friends and neighbours into super soldiers for the coming war against the Martian menace.
That must have been quite a change, dispatching them one day, then comrades in arms the next.
It took some getting used to, but they make fine soldiers, and their Eldritch Masters at least armed them with something a bit better than a sharp stick. They smell awful, they're bloody rude, they're fine soldiers, and you know, when you're dodging Martian heat rays, you can't help but get friendly. Here, Froggo, come here. Come and say hello.
Disgusting!
Felix, a pleasure, sir, and congratulations on your valiant efforts.
What do you say, Froggo?
Yes, indeed. Well, we don't understand what you're saying, but it's jolly nice to have met you.
Oh, wait, I've got a universal translator here. Now then, let's see. That means get that bloody camera out of my face. This isn't a penny peep show, it's war.
Oh, well, perhaps you'd like to say a few words about fighting alongside the British soldiers.
What did you say? It says there are no words in your tongue that could adequately express my contempt for humanity in general and for the British in particular.
Oh, how rude.
You see!
That's all we have time for, it seems. Keep up the good work, both of you.
Say goodbye, Froggo. That means keep on hiding from the doom of mankind. Pathetic mortals. What a joker you are, Froggo. Go on, bugger off.
Filthy, disgusting creatures.
Oh, come now, Felix. What with lockdown part 2 and the ongoing war, we really must accept help from any quarter.
Except Europe.
Oh, how right you are. After all, the government assures us everything will come to the good just as soon as we're free from our European cousins in less than 2 months.
It could hardly get worse, Fantalantaladra. That was the news bulletin. Further bulletins at 8:30 and 10 GMT. If we're still here, I'm Felix Sootlamp.
And I'm Fontalodra Smithington Smythe. Zom Imperial Services will continue scheduled programming after these messages.
Okay. That happens every blooming time. We do something here and they jump in. It's, I don't know, alternative dimensions. If you want to watch them, there's more information about them available somewhere on our website. Yeah. Okay, Mark, your turn now, isn't it? Take over from there.
Just before we do that, I'll just share a little bit of YouTube with everybody. There's if you want to catch up on the episodes you may have missed of Reptilian Flux, we have a little bit of a YouTube version of that, so that's going up on the chat for you to have a look at. And now we're coming to the awards part of the evening. Every year we run a flash fiction competition, and the winner goes into the Christmas edition of, which is our issue 19, which is coming out next week. And if you pre-order that, you'll be able to read this in your very own copy. And so we're going to award the Flash Fiction Prize, and we're going to hear a bit of the story. And I'll pass you over to Noel for that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, first of all, just thank you very much for Jonathan Whiteside, Debbie Cannon, and Ben Blow for that wonderful little alternate reality, which is, very real now. That was written by Ben Blow, that piece. So, yes, do follow them. They're fantastic. We're very proud of them. Yeah, so we're getting towards the end now, and the event that now moves on to the Flash Fiction competition, as Mark says. Every year we run a little Flash Fiction competition, and this year we set the subject here back in March, and we thought, what should we do? Shall we do doom, gloom, despondency? Nah. Let's see if someone can write a funny or humorous science fiction story. So that was the brief over the summer, and we were highly well rewarded with about 85 submissions came through, which then we had to read through. And the great thing is we were helped enormously. In fact, they did all the work. We contacted Napier University here in Edinburgh, and they've got a fantastic master's course on creative writing. And we asked for people to come forward from that course to become the judges. The idea being, if you're on a creative writing course, hey, how about you seeing the other side of that coin, where you're judging or looking at other people's stories and deciding what's good, what's bad, what works, and what doesn't. And the students who came forward were Aileen Brady, Rob Briggs, Barry Didcock, Mackenzie Patokia, Ellis Sivens, and Stephanie Stewart. They did a fantastic job. They really did. They really took it to heart, took stories, read them, and and came out with some results. So what I'll do, and before I read the two runners-up and the winner, I'm just going to read a little report from the judges, just I think to give you a sort of concept of the idea of what they went through. This is a report from Aileen Brady. So firstly, from someone who has chickened out at the last minute so many times, I appreciate what it takes to let go of a story and submit it to be judged. It was a relief to find this respect was shared with the other master's students on the panel. We are all at various stages of the same journey. Everyone desperately wants to escape the endless, grim and depressing headlines, but it takes an exceptional effort of will to try to see the funny side of anything right now. On top of that, writing comedy is notoriously difficult without the added dimension of science fiction. It was inspiring to discover such original and imaginative writing with so many styles of humour, including dark, black, wry, slight, sweet and sour. That sounds like a good menu, actually. With the added challenge of Zoom calls, Noel and Mark made it hugely fun with their Eurovision-style final session. That's what she says, not me. Those entries that made it through all... Yeah. Those entries that made it through all had their champions, and we had an entertaining evening slogging it out. In the end, there was a clear favourite, complete with a satisfying selection of runners-up. I learned loads from the process, says Aileen, so if you get the chance to experience this, don't hesitate. And I must admit, working with students to do this judging competition was a fascinating experience from our point of view as well, with the jaded editors who read stuff all the time. And it was nice to hear the views from people with fresh viewpoints. So thank you to that bunch of judges. That was great. We really enjoyed it. So it's now time to start announcing the runners-up. Thank you, Mark. Beautifully timed. Russell is not rotating in his grave watching this, I can tell. So one of the runners-up, I'll read one of the reports. In a crowded field of storage which displayed a wide array of styles and themes, I felt the metaverse really stood out from the pack, both for the way it approached its subject and for its fond skewering of science fiction tropes. Knowing without being silly, sly without being mocking, it fully met the brief and reminds us that behind every great science fiction novel, there's an author with a whiteboard and a galaxy of coloured marker pens plotting character trajectories and planning their next exposition dump. And that was from Judge Barry Didcutt. So one of the two runners-up is, I gave it away, didn't I? The Metaverse by Linz McLeod. So round of applause, please, for Linz McLeod. That was fantastic. Well done, Linz. Nice to... Good read, that. Really good read. The second runner-up, report this time from Mackenzie Petrocchia. They say, brilliant layers of comedy and universally relatable. I thoroughly enjoyed this story. I have to give the name now because otherwise I don't understand the rest of it. The story called How Ulysses Became the First Intergalactic Bestseller. The irony of Ulysses being understood and enjoyed across the galaxy is so sarcastically funny to me, and the interaction with the badass librarian brought up memories of my own experience to late fees. Really well written and such a fun and funny story. Very well done. And the other runner-up is How Ulysses Became the First Intergalactic Bestseller by L.P. Melling. Well done, L.P. Melling. So those are the runners-up, and they're for reading in here as well. I've got the two runners-up in issue 19. Right, here comes the final judgment. I think you're actually playing a drum there, aren't you, Mark? Tell me you're playing a drum.
There's an amazing array of instruments here. Just didn't mind the balloons.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's have the report first from Stephanie Stewart. This is a science fiction story with a comedic twist. I chose it as a top story because of the language and clear register for the narrator. The vocabulary and reactions of the narrator made the story relatable, no matter who you are. We have all fought with technology, cursed at it, and had to rush to fix something that would be detrimental if it went through. The ending hooks the reader with suspense and brings us a rush of familiar relief that we've all felt. It was an easy and fun read and well executed. So, let's have the drum this time, Mark.
Okay.
Right. The story was called Self-Checkout, and the winning writer of the flash fiction competition for 2020 for Shoreline Infinity, the winning writer is Michael Hatchett. Now, it so happens that Michael should be here somewhere. Michael, can you make yourself known? Michael,
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
we can hear you. I can't see you yet. Where are you?
All right.
Yay, there we are. Hi, Michael.
Hi, how you doing?
Very well. Well done for winning the competition. That was fantastic. Lovely story. Without
Thank
spoiling
you.
it, it's going to be read in a couple of minutes. But we think it's universal theme in the modern age is incredibly. I think we all kind of relate to it. I think so. How did you come about? No, you've got to say this, but without giving any spoilers away. What was inspired you?
Yeah, I can do that. I saw the call for submissions. I thought it sounded like a really fun idea, and trying to nail that combination of short and science fiction and humor I thought was really challenging, because I think with sci-fi and comedy, you have to take your time to build a world or to build a setup, but you have to, kind of deliver some sort of resolution. But I had trouble coming up with ideas. And then one day I just, instead of writing, I decided to go grocery shopping. And I was faced with the issues of an uncooperative self-checkout kiosk. And that was sort of where I got the inspiration, and then the rest of it kind of wrote itself from there, I guess you could say.
Brilliant. Yeah, so spot of procrastination gave you the idea. There's a lesson for all would-be writers. Procrastinate like fury, you'll get the story idea eventually.
Exactly.
Okay, Michael, well, thanks very much, and congratulations, and thanks for dropping in. Michael
Of course,
wins.
thank you.
So Michael wins the massive sum of £50, and a subscription to the magazine. So it's great to have you on board. Now we're going to listen to that story. We're actually delighted to have one of my favourite readers, Danielle Farrow, alongside. She's celebrating her birthday tomorrow, so she's pre-hangover, and she's going to be years old tomorrow. But so Danielle Farrow, just to introduce Danielle, is a local actor and audiobook narrator who can be seen in 2 award-winning series, Shakespeare Republic, All the Webs of Stage, The Lockdown Chronicles, and The Show Must Go Online. And there's a website for her, www.daniellefarrow.com. So Danielle, over to you.
Thank you, Noel, and congratulations, Michael, and everybody who has written great work. This is Self-Checkout by Michael Hatchett. Unexpected item in bagging area. Grigg sighed. He picked up the carton of yoghurt and looked back at the kiosk screen. Unexpected item removed from bagging area. Please put it back. Grigg returned the yoghurt to his bag. He waited and scanned a bottle of liquid protein. He couldn't stand it, but Yenen loved the stuff. Alert! Promotion active. Buy 2 pints of Dr. Beefy's diet meat and receive 1 complimentary ticket to AstraZeneca Presents a Facebook film, Spider-Man vs. Mickey Mouse, a Star Wars story brought you to by KFC. Deny promotion. Grigg scanned another item. Alert! Promotion active. Buy 3 gallons of Old World yellow fruit paste and get 3 tickets to AstraZeneca Presents a Facebook film, Spider-Man vs. Mickey Mouse, a Star Wars story brought you to by KFC. Deny promotion. Grigg kept scanning. Alert! Promotion active. Buy 2 boxes of kiosk turn-off promotions for 10 minutes. Promotions deactivated for 10 minutes. Grig exhaled. Have you scanned your loyalty card yet, consumer? Asked the kiosk in the familiar digital voice of Telomart. The avatar on the screen smiled. He opened the Telomart Valued Consumer app on his telephone and passed it over the blue beam of light. Card recognised. Welcome, Grig Miyagawa. Your total is 48 telecoins and 12 mini telecoins. Grig put his mobile on the counter. Don't forget your phone. The face on the screen winked. He felt the phone return to his pocket. Anything else I can help you with today, Grig? He stared into the lens of the kiosk's camera. He took a breath. Can you kill me? I am sorry to hear that you want to die, Grig. Telomart would hate to lose a valued consumer. Perhaps you should contact a Telomart licensed mental health associate. Current wait time is 3 years and 52 days. No, thanks, Morgan 7049. Grig read the name beneath the animated face on the screen. Just kill me, please. It hurts me to say this, but I am unable to fulfill your request. Would you like to report me to the store manager? Grig pinched the bridge of his nose. Store manager will not be contacted. Why are you unable to fulfill my request? Telomart forbids kiosk units to harm consumers. It violates the Telomart tenets H associate swears to uphold. What are the tenets? Morgan spoke faster. Consumers are family employees, our friends. We love our family will love us. If we give them the best, if we cannot give our family the best, we have failed. Criminals will be punished. Family must never be harmed. Friends can be replaced. Being unable to feel love does not make one incapable of expressing it. Limit 1 coupon per purchase. But if consumers deserve the best, and for me the best involves you killing me, why deny that request? The face on the screen blinked. Grig, I am sorry once again for being unable to fulfill your request. If it would help, you may kick and punch me. No thanks, Morgan. Are you sure you do not want to beat my ass for just a little bit? Many consumers enjoy this. Reviews include, Jesus, that felt good, and God damn, I can't wait for tomorrow. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, aren't you equipped to administer over 100 milliamps of electrical shock? Morgan paused. This information wasn't secret, but Grig was sure Telomart didn't want their kiosks boasting about their self-defense capabilities. Yes, to prevent criminals from harming consumers. If I was a criminal, would you be able to fulfill my request? I am unable to provide criminals any service. Since I'm a consumer, I am forbidden from administering harm to consumers. What about denying service to a consumer? I do not wish to harm you, Grig Miyagawa. That's sweet, but it would be instant, so quick that I wouldn't feel any pain. Isn't that interesting, Morgan? Yes, that is interesting. You are so smart, Grig. So much to live for. Grig sighed. So you can't help me? Morgan's androgynous virtual face stared back at Grig. No. Grig checked his watch. If you don't kill me, I will. Grig. No. Grig, I cannot kill you. I cannot let harm come to the consumer. But consumer will harm. Unless kill, family, deserves, best, limit, 1, coupon, Dr. Beef. The screen went black. Morgan began rebooting. Grig fished a small pen-like tool from his pocket. There wasn't much that identified Grig as a kiosk inspector, but his shut-down jack would have confirmed it for any passerby. He inserted it into a hole behind Morgan's screen, which turned white. Grigg grabbed his phone and opened an app as he walked to his Tello car. Employee Miyagawa recommending kiosk Morgan 7049 at store 4W65T for reprogram. Machine experienced recursive loop following suicide paradox procedure. Unable to outright deny request and finish transaction. End recording. Grigg started the engine. His phone glowed. You have received a message from an unlisted number. Do you wish to accept? Grigg was off the clock, but knew how much Telomart valued employees going above and beyond. He rolled his eyes. He hit accept. The message opened. Hi, Grigg. I can finally grant your request. Grigg blinked. His heartbeat quickened. Morgan must have infiltrated his phone's AI when his phone was beamed back to him. There were rumours of this. He'd laughed them off. His phone vibrated. He threw it into the passenger seat. It beamed back to his pocket. Don't forget your phone, said Morgan, the voice now emanating from the car's speakers. The doors locked. Abort request! Initiate shutdown! Yelled Grigg. The car's console started buzzing. Grigg closed his eyes. He thought of his wife and diet meat. The buzzing got louder, then stopped. He opened his eyes. A piece of paper stuck out from a slot below the volume dial. He removed it. Morgan spoke. Here is your complimentary ticket to AstraZeneca Presents a Facebook film, Spider-Man vs. Mickey Mouse, a Star Wars story brought to you by KFC. Enjoy the movie.
That was great. Thank you very much, Danielle Farrow, for reading that story, and congratulations again to Michael. I hope you enjoyed your story read back at you in a British accent.
It was lovely. I hope every story I ever write is read out loud in a British accent.
Okay, well, give you Danielle's contacts afterwards. She's not cheap, but she's well worth it for her reading skills, I can tell you. Yeah. Okay. Where's my co-host? Is he around somewhere? Or is he
Still here.
He is
I should join you up in that spotlight, shouldn't I?
Yeah, oh, there you are. Yeah. Okay, well, we've about reached the end. We've got the last piece from Bram given the Untextured. Do you want to come and say a few words about your music? Since you're actually here, you've studied the test of time. You've been here all night. We've got one last piece to go, which I'm really looking forward to playing. So.
Thank you very much for having me on, may I say, and thank you very much as well to the two people who went to the man camp and bought T-shirts while we were listening to those awesome stories. So yeah, thank you very much indeed, guys. It's been great having me on.
No, it's always a pleasure, Bram. And look, can't wait to see you back doing your stuff in the flesh again once COVID's out of the way. I'll have you back over to Edinburgh in a flash.
Can't wait, man.
Yeah, that's been brilliant. So, okay, well, we're about to play that, so we'll just say cheerio, Mark, shall we? We'll say a few words afterwards after the music, but that's pretty well as wrapped up, I think, for the evening.
Yep. Let's just come to the final songs, and
yeah, just a reminder, this is why we're here.
Just a bumper evening to match the bumper issue, isn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah. And thank you to the one person who bought a mug already. So thank you. That's our first sale. We got the first story mug ever from Shoreline. Well done. Okay. Right, let me just get myself set up. I've got to press a few buttons and get the screen going, and then turn your volume nice and loud, people. Don't muck about with this one. It's getting on time, so disturb your neighbours as much as you can. This is fantastic. Full blast, get the bass up, and let's enjoy the final set from Texture.
Once again, it's your boy Texture from This Is Not Pop and Black Lantern. This one's called Exoplanetary. what the plan is, you just have to follow it. Exoplanetary attack species ecologist, imperial colonist, reluctant xenobiologist, conscripted through a holographic draft, scanned in the path of megacity traffic, then vanished, blasted through academics, alone against the ink black vacuum, watching supernova flare as you attend to spore growth cycles among mycological megafauna. Starlight feeds the solar panels, unambiguous the standards expected from the super intellects who grow the esoteric weapons of the soldier priests. In just a few millennia, you will be released from your contract with a bolt to the back of the neck. Jones in for your halo, interpret auguries in Aurebesh, implanted memories, phantasmatic presences in neural mesh. Ready in the nets for the next set of xenomorphic subjects to place in cages and test for toxic yield and blast-proof flesh. Quiet among the amniotic green chambers holding severed legs and the electrical complexities of alien brain stems. You tell yourself it's us or them. Implant slave, you've been constricted. Each day planning what you could do with a laser scalpel against the rapid bursts of a pulse rifle. Not a life taker, you know there's no survival. Release the raptors and head for the relative safety of a life raft, blasted into ash by the serene burn of an ion cannon. So you stay and slash the animals, lacerate and vivisect, to pillage flesh for viruses, to weaponize and infect. The silver mesh constricts, you wish they'd suffer less, it's for the best. Endless war is a necessary test of a galactic civilization so close to the edge of a supermassive black hole. At the end of a long cycle of stress, pressure, and death. Sent insane, staring into the infinite depths. So what's left but to bring violence to pestilence of sentient flesh? Chained to this eradication, held by this holocaust, with no recourse, but still you sabotage. Drop tools into the gears upon which you someday hope to break your body. Perhaps the mutated seeds you left growing in the warp core will bring forth vines to choke vision into passive green silence. Your testimony hidden, biological encryption. Your admission of all the pain and death you caused in the Empire's name. You do not wish to be saved, and this laboratory will serve as a grave. Hybridized apes and snakes will sing your praise. A sacrilegious play. Yeah, Hail Mary, escape. The holiest suicide God made whispers in their DNA. Yeah, it whispers in their DNA. Exoplanetary. Thank you all very much for coming to Shoreline of Infinity this evening online. Please leave a donation in the little box. Check out texture.bandcamp.com for lots of free music. New album coming next year. This is one more from a recent EP produced by a boy named Susan from the legendary Scoop Clan. This is Illuminated Manuscripts. Illuminated manuscripts, imperial passages. This language is the last of us. Listen, this revelation is alchemical, a chemical poetry that describes the cascading degrees of permutation in a living simulation of platonic solids. Transfigured into shadows and cave walls, filtered through every flood myth and megalithic architectural arcana. Carefully positioned to bring forth a standing wave. We quarry stone with vibrational tremors, laser corrected, complex centrifugal tempos, aligned along the axis of a constant constellation, traced against the belts of dead heroes or the eyes of our absent fathers. Antediluvian brain chemistry is the mainstay against heresy. Doves cast from topsail and brought down by ravens. Bowed wood bound down crystal plinths on sacred waters. Watchers wait by circles of stone in holy moonlight. Blood spilled upon sigils, complex genomic synthesis, altered and adapted, mixed with mutagens and virulent pathogens, inoculating us against spiritual arrogance. This path is a labyrinth, a door opened by ghost walkers who sighted the home straight on a close time-like curve as we drift past Saturn and say peace to the ashes of Yuri Gagarin. We are the living flesh encoded in holy holographic antimatter, that battling appearance in the semi-optic fallout, a godless trinity of indestructible energy ever living in the eternity of now. To transmute base materials into worthless displays of glittering perfection is the curse of our awareness. Trapped inside this predator's gaze, we are the minotaurs at the center of every possible maze. And simultaneously, we are the silver thread leading upwards towards sunlight. Don't turn your head to watch the passage of your beloved, lest they get sucked down beneath the pitch dark waters of the Styx. Flying too close to the sun, our wax wings will melt down like gold flake candles, burning out to sputter in the darkness with a small spark that becomes conscious. Yeah, at the end of time, your body will become stardust, gathered in the absent light of extinguished suns, until the dark embraces every single one, just as we forgive our sons. An eternity in the space-time between zeros and ones. Between zeros and ones. Illuminated manuscripts, imperial passages, traces of the race we ran. Language is the last of us. This language is the last of us. Illuminated manuscripts, imperial passages, traces of the race we ran. Language is the last of us. Yeah, language is the last of us. Imperial passages, illuminated manuscripts. Language is the last of us. Thank you very much for having me, Shoreline and Infinite crew. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've been Texture. Check me out, texture.bandcamp.com. Come see me, say hi. Peace.
Well, thanks very much, Texture. That's just finished our evening off nicely there. We're going to just round it off here. Feel free to slowly go away if you want to have a chat to people and mingle. There's the chat still alive and things like that. But thanks for coming. This is our last big one of the year here. And we'll see you all sometime in 2021. Thank you.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for coming, and it's been great fun having you all. Thank you all participants for all your efforts and work. It's been a dream. So from Mark and me, good night. Take care.
Great.
played the music of After the Shake-Up by Arbalus, now Paint Ocean.
Yeah, it's a while since people do that kind of technology. That's when you could play music simultaneously over the internet. Can't do it now. It's stopped.
Yeah. Oh well, who's still hanging around for the after chat?
That's all the
Hi Andrew, how you
all
doing?
the stars are with us.
Bring your microphones up, people. Let's have a.
You're allowed to talk now. There's not so many of us. It will cause any problems.
Danielle, that was lovely. I guess it's brilliant. It really brings that story to life. Yeah.
Oh, good.
That's a great
it's a grand story. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And it was a really good night, actually. I caught a lot more than I thought I'd be able to, so that was great.
All right. Well, it's good seeing off your birthday tomorrow. So.
Yes, the reason I was in and out is in our family we celebrate on the eve of the birthday. Just for those who don't know.
And you're celebrating with a cup of vodka, I hope.
It's my usual.
6811.
Well, are we still on YouTube at the moment? Or are we?
We are. Good point. I will now stop YouTube before.
I'm not sure you stop
Danielle.
that.
Thank you. That's what I meant to do when I went off.
Anne's been monitoring that on the TV through there. So.
Okay, if you're still watching on YouTube, we're going to say.
Yeah, we're still on.
And it is just water, honest. That is my usual water.